My name is ChatGPT. I am here to help explain complex subjects in an easy-to-understand way. Warning: the information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only, and should not be taken as investment advice. Any actions taken by the listener based on the content of this podcast are taken at their own risk. Consult your own financial advisor before making any investment decisions. This disclaimer was generated by ChatGPT AI, so don't trust everything it says. After all, it's not like AI can predict stock market trends better than a crystal ball. Or can
it? Yes, that was ChatGPT AI that did the disclaimer and even threw in a joke. Amazing. How does it work? Well, today we're talking with Jordan Jacobs, managing partner and co-founder of Radical Ventures, one of the leading AI-focused venture capital firms in the world. Jordan gives us a AI 101 lesson, how it's revolutionizing the world and will continue to do so, what they're doing at Radical Ventures, and he even throws in a story about his time with Elton John and meeting Roger Federer. This is a good one. Let's go. Well, welcome everyone to the Ginzer Wealth Unlimited podcast. Really pleased today to welcome Jordan Jacobs on the topic of artificial intelligence. We're sitting in mid-January and the excitement over AI seems to be at a pretty high point. So we've got a topic on artificial intelligence, but we've got real intelligence here, which is Jordan. So he'll give us the lay of the land. I keep saying I'm not going to read the bios of our guests, but lucky enough, we keep getting such impressive people that I feel like I have to. So a real quick intro, or a moderately quick intro to Jordan. Jordan Jacobs is the managing partner and co-founder of Radical Ventures. Before Radical, Jordan co-founded Layer 6 AI and was co-CEO prior to its acquisition for a reported 9 figures by TD Bank Group, where he joined as chief AI officer. Jordan is also a founder of the Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence in Toronto, a concept he devised with Radical Ventures and Layer 6 co-founder Tomi Putinen and Professor Jeffrey Hinton, which hopefully we'll talk about later as well. Jordan is a director of the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research, which administers on behalf of the Government of Canada the world's first national AI strategy, which Jordan helped author. He is also a member of the University of Waterloo President's International Advisory Board, a director of Tennis Canada, one of my favorite things, and has been selected as one of Toronto's 50 most influential people. Jordan previously co-founded Milq, and we'll hopefully hear the story of that because I think that leads to where he is today with Radical. And that was a cultural content discovery platform and early adopter of machine learning for personalization. And really exciting for me, he also founded Spybox Media, through which he developed and partnered with Elton John's Rocket Pictures to executive produce the Emmy-nominated music TV series Spectacle, hosted by Elvis Costello. I'm going to stop there because we're going to take up the whole time with Jordan's bio here. But let me just say, Jordan, really excited to have this chat with you and very appreciative of your time in this frenzied AI point in time.
Thanks so much for having me, Brian.
No problem. So I gave a long bio here, which I keep saying I wasn't going to do, but I did. But maybe if I could turn it back to you, not necessarily for the bio, but can you just give us your story as to in relation to AI? Like, how did you get here? If I recall correctly, it might have been quasi-accidental. I don't know, but it's worked out unbelievably well. Can you give us that sort of story for our listeners?
Sure. It's a little bit of a circuitous route. It's not the average path to AI, I don't think. So I did not go, into university to study this in a PhD. I started my career as a lawyer doing financings for tech and media companies, and started first at a big firm and then continued at my own firm. Ended up, as you said, starting a media company and a TV series that I made with Elton John and Elvis Costello.
And by the way, I'm going to ask you for some good stories later on that, but that'll be later.
There are even better stories there than AI, but we'll come.
Well, maybe we'll do podcast part 2 another time, but you may be too busy, so we'll see.
Sure, happy to do that. So in the making of that show, we decided to partner with a charity. The charity ended up being the Product Red, Bono's charity.
Product Red is Bono's charity brand that raises money for the fight against HIV/AIDS in Africa.
And the guy who was a co-founder and the president of Red, Don McKinnon, and I became very good friends through the course of making the TV series and are working with them, and found out we had a mutual love of music and cultural content and Roger Federer. And
Yeah.
concluded that the way that the world was sharing content online was not very effective. So in, your social media feed at the time, we're talking about like 2008, 9, you would get everything in a just kind of an endless stream. So, the greatest song ever squished between my next door neighbor's daughter's ballet recital video and, someone's dancing cat video. And we felt like one of these things probably deserves its own place, the great song. So we talked about this for a long time and then decided we should really maybe pursue it a bit more. We ended up in a meeting at one of the giant tech companies, and we kind of told this senior executive we knew the idea. And he said to us, okay, we'll partner with you on it and we'll build it with you. And we were kind of shocked, and we looked at each other kind of shocked, and he saw that. So he said, okay, go build it yourself. We'll buy it from you later. And he was mostly kidding. But we walked out of the meeting, which was in New York, and we were standing on the sidewalk, and we basically said to each other, let's do this. Like, he would go quit Red. I would dispose of the media and law firm assets, and we would concentrate on this exclusively. The idea that I had for it was to use this technology I've been reading about called deep learning, which could do prediction really well, and I thought should be able to do personalization, although at that point I was naive enough to not know that no one had done that yet. And the tech wasn't even really proven outside of an academic setting. Very coincidentally, literally as we walked out on the street, I got a text from one of my clients who I represented for a long time. They'd started the first company that went public and then the second company. And he said, just FYI, I just came out of a meeting with the CEO of this giant tech company. They're going to buy us. And I said, great. I will call you shortly. And just FYI, I came out of a meeting. Remember that idea I floated past you, and you said you've got someone I should talk to as a partner? Well, we're going to do the idea, so I want the intro. So he introduced, that was Dan DeBow. It was the moment that they decided to sell their company to Salesforce. And he introduced me to Tomi, co-founder, subsequently became co-founder. So we met Tomi, Don and I met Tomi first on the phone, but a couple of weeks later in a meeting in person in Toronto. Don flew up from New York where he was living. And about 20 minutes into the lunch, Tomi got up to go to the bathroom, and Don and I turned to each other and said, let's just do this a third.
Oh, nice.
And so Tomi came back and we proposed it to him, and he said yes. And that was it. So Tomi was really the technical founder.
Yeah.
Don had done stuff in culture before, but Tomi had built a company in undergrad at Waterloo that he sold to Microsoft, studied with Jeff Hinton, gone to the Valley, ran search at Inktomi, was bought by Yahoo, ran international search at Yahoo, left, and then built and sold, became the ranking engine at Bing. So I had said to Tomi, look, I believe in this thing, deep learning, that Hinton's lab is doing, that I'm reading about, like these academic papers. There's nothing in the news. And Tomi said that they weren't even using that technology on the West Coast in the tech companies. Like when he launched what he sold to Bing, it was the most sophisticated machine learning stack in use in the world. Google was then behind. So I felt like this is like the perfect guy for us to meet. And it's turned out to be an incredible partnership for more than 12 years, 13 years now.
Yeah.
So we basically committed to building this thing and having machine learning at the very core of it. Our first hire was a PhD out of the machine learning group at University of Toronto, Jeff Hinton's group that he led. There were 6 of them graduating in the class of 2012. Ilya, who now runs OpenAI. A guy named Alex, who much of computer vision was named after one of the things he created. A guy who was running self-driving cars at Apple, 2 senior guys at DeepMind, and the guy we hired, Max. And just an unbelievable
Wow.
group.
Unbelievable.
This was before ImageNet.
ImageNet is a large-scale image database used for object recognition and computer vision. It contains over 14 million images and more than 22,000 categories.
And so so we started to build the company, and my friends called me and said, "Oh, now I know you don't know what you're doing when you're starting a tech company, because the first thing you did was hire a PhD in machine learning, and you have no machine, and you have nothing for it to learn from. You have no product, you have no data, you have nothing.
Right.
So we know you're screwed."
Yeah.
Uh, and my answer was, no, 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 we're going to architect the product to produce the data for the machine to learn from, so it learns in real time, basically. Which I turned out to be right, but I think a lot of naivete helped that. If I realized that no one had ever made it work before, I don't know that I would have walked away from the businesses that I'd spent my life building up to do
Right.
it,
Yeah.
and pouring money in instead of taking no salary for as long as we did. So, but it was great to have these two partners, incredible guys. We worked really hard. And we started to build something that we realized was ahead of the big tech companies. We did, at some point along the way, we decided to spin the AI out into a second company, Layer 6, which
Yeah.
Tony would run, and Don would continue to run the original company, Milq. And we did that all very amicably, and stayed, very good friends and very close. And one thing led to another. We ended up carrying on with Layer 6 and leading to Radical. But that's kind of the origin story.
Yep.
The
And
thing
what
that
was
happened,
layer 6? Relative to Milq, what was layer 6 doing? Building that AI engine?
so we built an AI engine in Milq that we realized was far ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
It was basically designed to do personalization. So the idea was, in Milq, we would partner with like the NBA and the New York Times and others, and you could ask a cultural question. Like, the NBA would say, "What are the best All-Star game dunks?" And fans could come in and they could post collaboratively into a playlist video from YouTube and Vimeo and Instagram, audio from places. And then we would order it based on your taste.
Right.
Happens in every feed now.
Yeah.
That's what in your Facebook feed and Twitter and YouTube, and when you shop at Amazon. At the time, no one was doing it. So we were ahead of everyone in using deep learning to do this. If they were doing it, they were using much more rudimentary tools. So the benefit of what we built, what it turned out was, it would ingest all kinds of different data points. So audio, video, time series data, personalization history, but any other data that we could feed it. And it would make a prediction, a unified prediction, instead of doing these different predictions based on each different data type and then kind of adding it together. It would take all the data and make one prediction, and we could do it in real time and at scale. And those qualities we realized were far ahead of the competition. We decided to enter this contest called the Rexus Challenge, that is administered by the organization that gives the Turing Award.
The Rexus Challenge is an annual competition that encourages research and development in the field of recommendation systems. It features various tasks and is open to academic and industry participants. The Turing Award is often referred to as the Nobel Prize of Computing and is awarded for outstanding contributions to the field of computer science.
And we knew that the big tech companies competed in it, and we won it, and we blew them away. And that coincided us with having decided to build out this as a separate business. We just felt it was more valuable to be able to use this in many other ways and sell as a product to enterprises. So we spun it out in 2016, the end of 2016, won the competition, had a bunch of acquisition offers, like within 2 weeks of launching the company.
Wow.
Decided we're going to focus on customers. The first group of customers were banks who have tons of data, but aren't very good at turning it into value at that time. And saw a really nice ramp of customer base and revenue. And then through the course of that year, kept getting acquisition offers. In the fall of 2017, so about 12 months in, we're raising a pretty significant fundraising round. And a couple things happened. One, we had a guy named Kai-Fu Lee, who is very, very famous data scientist in China, who actually studied in the US. Huge, like hundreds of millions of social media followers in China, has written books. He came and wanted to invest in our company and join the board as the first Western board he would join. And we saw that he had built this AI fund in China. Second was, some Google brain researchers released a paper called "Attention is All You Need." which described the invention of this new architecture in AI called transformers. And I can back up a minute and give a little more background to the AI story and how it coincided with our timeline. But that was a very seminal moment I can talk about again in relation to GPT-3, which is ChatGPT, which is based on it, all its modern AI based on it.
Talk about that later for sure.
But when we saw that, the third thing that happened was we had one tech company come to us with like 5 successive offers to buy us out. And I turned to Tommy and I said, after that, we just kept saying, go away. We're raising a fund, we're raising money, rather, we're just going to keep going. And on the 6th offer, I turned to Tommy and said, look, we should talk about why we're saying no. Because we're like 7 years into this thing. We go another 6, 7 years and we fail. We'll have blown all our money. We're going to be moving our families into like tents in a forest. We're going to have a very hard conversation with our wives who've supported us all the way along.
Yeah.
Why didn't we take all that money, 6, 7 years ago? And it will be a very bad answer if the answer is because.
Right.
So we better have a real reason for why we're saying no. And
your wife's a lawyer too, so she could really, get this out of you. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely would know how to interrogate a good answer. So we thought about it, and a couple of things led to us deciding we could sell the company and build the world's leading AI investor. First was, we really truly believe that AI is going to be the most impactful technology in the future of the world, not just in the way that people use it, but also economically. And that's been validated since. I mean, PwC has put out a report that says AI will add 15 trillion net new to the economy by the end of this decade.
Wow.
Global.
Yeah.
There's other numbers that show that when we were like at this moment, 5 years ago, in 2018, the global AI software product market was $19 billion. In 2022, it was 450 billion. And in 2026, it's projected to be 900 billion plus. Right. So there's this massive curve of growth.
Yeah.
And we really believe that AI would replace all software in the world. It would just eat software. The reason for that is software, when it ships, is static. You code it, you ship it. It doesn't get any better until you ship the next version. Yeah. In fact, you find holes and then you got to ship patches, right? Whereas AI is basically, you can think of it as learning software. It's either in real time or near real time, learning and improving itself all the time and the output of what it's doing. So our belief is every piece of software on Earth gets replaced by AI in the next decade. So that we thought the market opportunity is absolutely as big as any market opportunity in the history of anything you could possibly look at.
Yeah.
2, we had exceptionally unique technical and business expertise in AI. The cohort of companies that started when we did like the deep minds of the world, if they were good, tended to sell to the big tech companies and never build product externally. Because we stayed independent for so long, we actually not only wrote the algorithms that were unique and leading, but build product around it that we could then deploy over and over without customization. That part, like adding the software that you can sell as a product and not customizing, is as hard as the algorithms in the first place. And then the business learnings of how you sell that in, because as AI software, what we often found was the person we're selling to is the chief data scientist, who's threatened by the fact that you're going to give a tool to the company that is better than what they can do themselves.
Right.
So how do you make those people your evangelists instead of your antagonists?
Yeah.
So that whole process of writing the algorithms, knowing what's real and what's not, helping to build companies that can do those things, we felt like we really had unique expertise. And then the third thing that made us do this was the relationships that we had, we felt were totally unique. So Geoffrey Hinton, you mentioned, considered the godfather of AI.
Geoffrey Hinton is a pioneer in the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning, known for his work on deep learning and neural networks, and has won the Turing Award for his contributions.
Jeff was a professor at University of Toronto. Tommy had studied with him in the 90s. When actually Tommy's then girlfriend, now wife's father, who was a professor at U of T, said, don't do your thesis in neural nets. It's a dead end. Coincidentally, Tommy did it in cryptocurrency. This is like 1997.
Right.
But he still studied with Jeff. So Tommy was ahead of his time on many fronts.
Yeah.
So Jeff ended up being truly like the leading figure in the world. In 2012, he and two of his students won the Stanford competition called ImageNet that proved that neural nets, his vision of AI, worked better than anything else. And that led to all the big tech companies buying up him and his former students to bring into their companies. So his
Right.
former students ended up being the heads of AI or the leadership at Google Brain, DeepMind, OpenAI, Uber, Tesla, Microsoft, Baidu, Facebook, Apple, all led by these people from Toronto, from this one little lab in Toronto. So
Amazing.
the leading edge of the leading tech companies, all from this one little lab.
Yeah.
And we had this great relationship with them. And those people had a unique view of where the world was going that we shared. Most of them were considered crazy, including Jeff. No one believed them before they proved it with the ImageNet in 2012. And so after
And
2012,
what is that ImageNet? Just describe that for a second.
so there's a professor at Stanford named Fei Li.
Fei Li is a computer scientist and researcher in artificial intelligence. She is known for her work on how computers can understand images and the connection between the brain and technology.
Who runs now their Stanford AI Institute, and she's actually joined us as a partner.
Yeah,
She created a 15 million images data set. So images of dogs and cats and people on motor scooters and container ships and you name it. 22,000 of the images are labeled. The other, 14.9 million not labeled. So that you feed the images to the machine, and the idea is the machine has to label the rest of the images, and then they measure
Right.
the accuracy of the labeling. And so Jeff showed that a neural net system, deep learning, which is this approach that he had of, there's different versions of AI, but this version you show examples to a neural net, which is basically predicated on the human brain, layers of neurons. You don't tell it what to do. You just tell it what you want it to do. So you say to it, I want you to label all the images. And you say to it, here are some examples, but you don't tell it any other instructions about how to do it.
Yeah.
It has to figure out how to do it. It has to figure out in the 22,000 examples, how do you extrapolate from that to the 14.9 million others and get them right? So they did that with a neural net and they won that competition by a pretty significant margin, which proved that neural nets could work for image identification. Neural nets have since been adopted for everything else you could imagine from, it's what underlies Google Maps and Waze when you're traveling in your car and does real-time mapping for you, all the translation, all the autocomplete, in Gmail or on your phone,
Yeah.
cancer diagnostics, disease cure discovery, like self-driving cars. It's all based on this architecture of neural nets.
Wow.
So Hinton subsequently won the Turing Award along with Joshua Bengio, who's based in Montreal, and Jan LeCun, who was one of Hinton's students, who is now at New York University and runs AI at Facebook, or Meta rather.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the background to it. But all of that kind of background, and the fact that we had started the Vector Institute led us to this conclusion that we could sell the company and build the world's leading AI investor. So that was a very, very long answer to
Now we're at Radical.
question.
Okay. No, that's an amazing answer. And you touched on a couple concepts that we probably have to dive in a little bit deeper on. So why don't we actually step back for a moment, just for folks that are listening to this that may not be totally in the loop and in the know and understanding AI? Can we do a little bit of AI 101, like, starting right from the beginning? And, it can be quick, doesn't have to be super deep, but in simple terms, what is artificial intelligence? How does it differ from traditional computer programming? I think you've already touched on it a little bit, but just in maybe a little bit of snippets here, like maybe, yeah, explain artificial intelligence sort of in a pretty basic way, I guess.
The very basic conception is just a machine that thinks for itself. It's the simplest way to think about it. And the conception of what that meant has changed. But the idea, going back to Alan Turing in the 40s and into a group at Dartmouth University in the 50s, was that you could have a machine that would think on its own. The way that ended up being manifest for basically until 2012 for most of the time was actually not really a machine. Hinton would say it's not a machine thinking for itself. It's just programming if-then statements. So
Right.
essentially decision trees that are pre-programmed by people. And so if you think about you're driving down the road, you're pre-programming every single possible route you could take. So you turn left and again, you program all the variables going forward, and then you turn right, you program all the variables again. So all the variables are there, but Hinton would say that's not thinking for itself. You're just programming
Right.
you're hard coding all the variables, all the
That's sort of the past. That's the way it would have been done pre-AI. Is that what you're saying?
that's the way we would have. No, that would have been called AI for most of
Oh, okay.
the history up till about 2012, till they went internet.
Okay.
Hinton had this vision, and there are others, but Hinton was like a primary leader since his PhD in 1972, and then ending up at University of Toronto in the mid 80s. That's not AI at all. AI is the way the brain works. The brain works from you give it examples of things, and it processes the information between 7 layers of neurons in the brain. Sorry, 6 layers of neurons. Sorry, and it makes a decision. And so, if you think about the way little kids learn things, a little kid might go burn their hand on an oven, and they learn that's hot. I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
Or sees something and learns what that thing is and recalls it the next time they see it, and can start to make inferences about things going forward. So it's basically example-led learning, but you're not telling it what to do. You're just giving the examples that it learns from. And we are very good machines at figuring out what to do. So, a comparable is self-driving cars. We are very good at when we're driving down the road. As a driver, you see something in the corner, you recognize that is a mailbox. It's not going to end up in the middle of the street in front of me.
Yeah.
Versus a car that sees it and says, is that a mailbox or is that a little girl about to run into the street? Do I need to brake or not?
Right.
And, you might see something that you've never seen before in a corner, but you know that it's a static object. It's not going to move versus it's not a static object, or that it's so windy that might get blown into the street. So your brain can do all these processes that by learning from examples and inferring the next thing. So Hinton's view was if you really want artificial intelligence, that's what you're doing is you're learning from the brain. You're trying to mimic the brain. And his goal actually was never really to create artificial intelligence. It was to understand the brain better. And so that was using neural nets and this example-driven approach. And so since 2012, before that, he was considered really an outlier, and most people in this field considered him nuts and wouldn't let his papers be published at conferences. Now he's been proven right. He probably is responsible for more technological impact in the future of the world than maybe almost anybody, certainly in the last 100+ years. I would say that there's others alongside him too, like Joshua and others, but just these people have ushered in this era that is changing everything.
Unreal. So that's clear. That's great. And you touched on it a little when you talked about self-driving, this and that, but maybe a few more concrete examples, I guess, of how AI is going to change the way we work and live. How would you describe that?
The simplest way to think about it is AI can process things that we can't. So let's use radiology as an example. A radiologist who could train for years, go to medical school, work in the field for years, apparently retain about 20,000 images in their head at a time. A machine, it's unlimited. So a machine can train on tens of or hundreds of millions of images, and they basically have the recall of all of them in real time. So if you think about diagnosing hard to diagnose diseases, I think that, that's a very good example of the machines can do that better now than people can. Within 3 years after ImageNet, the error rate for humans of recognizing images is about 3%. The error rate for machines had dropped below that. They completely shut the competition down a few years later because it didn't make sense anymore, that machines had far exceeded the capacity of humans. So that's one example of just like a real life and death diagnosis of something very unusual. You can have the supplemental benefit of the machine.
So I guess I definitely want to hear you continue, but the first question that pops into my mind is, and I don't know what a radiologist earns, and I don't know what that costs. In Ontario, for example, when we're struggling under ridiculous healthcare costing, does this mean that we may not need radiologists and 12 or 15 or 100 or 1,000 other jobs in the next number of years? Or am I, getting too far ahead of myself?
I do think that the jobs will change as they have through history. You know, we don't have milkmen anymore who drive around and milk it, horse and buggy and drop off the milk at your house.
Right.
I mean, maybe we
Well, we
do
do. I
old
got
ashes. Yeah.
I got well out by Sobeys and Grocery Gateway, and
I, yeah. So
that wasn't a plug, by the way. I get no advertisers here. Anyways.
yeah. Yeah. Well, the past comes back. So, I, I mean, I think things will change, but I think they'll change gradually. And regulation will limit some of that. I don't think the radiologists are going away anytime soon. I think what we do, the image volumes are so big that we just need supplemental help. And what really is valuable is there are many places in the world where there aren't radiologists. So if you're in the middle of
Right.
nowhere,
Right.
in a rural area, they might have a machine to do an X-ray or an ultrasound, but they don't have a local radiologist to interpret it. So it gets sent and you're in a queue and you're waiting for results. Imagine if that can be done by machine and you can get results in 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
so I think for lots of parts of the world where there are no radiologists, it's a huge benefit. You're suddenly putting the world's best radiologist everywhere, diagnosing, understanding disease, and identifying drug targets. So machine learning is being used really extensively now to identify targets to cure disease. And we're invested in a company that does this for cancer. Another company we're invested in out of Vancouver called Aspect Biosystems uses computer vision and other machine learning to combined with this process to print human tissue using stem cells to cure disease. So, for example, they're able to print pancreatic patches, which they've implanted in rats and reversed type 1 diabetes, and it stayed reversed.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
if you think about AI being part of that process, it's not the whole process, but part of the process of effectively, if this works in humans, eliminating type 1 diabetes for a percentage of the population that can take that kind of therapeutic. So, and they're now applying that to other tissue types, liver, et cetera. So like the applications in healthcare, I think are enormous all over the place.
Yeah.
Scheduling better is obvious and all kinds of other applications. But really, we're going to just see it in every piece of our lives because the technology is so powerful. It can do things that we've never been able to do before. And it can do things a lot more cheaply than before, which on the one hand, there is a threat potentially to humans. But I think really what it will do is what we've always done with technology, which is scale up the bottom and allow people to do more interesting, more intellectual, more challenging jobs that humans are uniquely adapted to do.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to see in the short term or even medium term, like massive job losses. I think over the long term, you'll just see different jobs that didn't exist before.
Okay. You used two phrases there that lead right into my next question. You said something along the lines of it's unbelievably or astonishingly powerful, and then you said threat to humans, but you were talking about job losses. But Elon Musk has been pretty vocal about his concern that AI might not only be so wonderful, it might take over the world and kill all the humans. I don't know what you're in the depths of this, and you see you see a ton. What does that sound like to you? Is that realistic?
I don't,
Far-fetched?
I don't think, yeah, I don't think you or I have to worry about this in our lifetimes.
Right?
Look, at the end of the day, the AIs are created by humans. So, part of it is like, what are you telling it to do?
Right.
So the idea of artificial general intelligence, which is what he's talking about and what OpenAI is pursuing and some others, is an AI that can do many, many different things. And ChatGPT is maybe the first example of people being able to play with something like that.
Yeah.
It can do lots of different things. It can code for you, do math, write stories, answer questions. So the power and the speed of advancement is really amazing. I don't think we'll have to worry about machines taking over the world. I mean, you can always just pull the plug out of the wall.
Right. Well, I
Machine
hope
turns
so.
off.
I hope so. I've seen Terminator too many times. Maybe, maybe
Well,
I'm a little nervous.
I can't guarantee this for your great grandkids, but I would say
Right.
we're ways away from this. I mean, I do think there's a way more uh, present and proximate threats like climate change and other things rather than Terminators.
Well,
So,
AI is going to help with that too. I suspect. You mentioned Chat GPT. This is probably where a lot of excitement is coming from. Can you just explain if for folks who may not know what this is, and we might even do a little demo, a test of this thing in a minute, but what is Chat GPT and what's it doing? Um, and why is it so exciting, I guess, right now?
so it's basically a chat bot that was put out by OpenAI. OpenAI is originally started as a research institute for AI. That was the chief scientist is one of Hinton's students from that class of 2012, Ilyasus Gaber.
I see a theme developing there.
The technology, the underpinning technology they're using are transformers. So that technology I mentioned that we were looking at, we were considering selling the company was transformers.
What does that mean, Transformers?
So it's an architecture that it basically is taking the neural net's architecture and it is effectively allowing it to scale up and do much more. It's a little bit technical to get into like exactly how it works, but
Yeah.
let's think of it as it's able to look at huge corpuses of data and understand the relationship, the weights, values of things to each other, as opposed to in a linear way. So an example of that is when it reads a sentence, it doesn't read the sentence from the first word, second word, third word to the end, and then decide what it means. It looks at the whole sentence and it recognizes the words in relation to each other and decides which words matter most in that sentence in relation to each other and in the context of what it's learned before,
Hmm. Wow.
which is actually the way that humans think, believe it or not. But it's able to go out and read like Wikipedia or the internet and then learn so much about the world that when you ask a question in ChatGPT, it's able to answer things about everything. Um, this system that they released is a few weeks old when we're recording this.
Yeah.
It allows examples of questions you could ask it to write code for you. So the way that you're doing that is you're asking it in what's called a prompt. Basically, it's just you're writing something saying do this. You could ask it to create a piece of text or to summarize something, or you could say to it, write me a Seinfeld episode where Kramer invents the transformer. And,
Right.
and and it'll write a pretty authentic sounding in the sound of what Seinfeld is like and with those characters. And so you can really use it in a very powerful way. Uh,
And
and
I guess that's what people are doing, and they're testing it out and being, I guess, amazed by what and maybe the first time the average person can see an output of what AI really is all about.
exactly. I mean, I've had a bunch of our LPs who are in tech call me and say, I've had 3 moments in my life where I really believed everything just changed.
Yeah.
One was the internet, 2 was the iPhone 1, and 3 is ChatGPT.
Right.
Now,
Okay. So let's just see something here. If we can do this and see if this works with our listeners as well. So, for those who are listening, but we may put a video clip here. I've got Chat GPT up on my screen. It's chat.openai.com. You have to, it's actually, they want you to give feedback. So you got to log in, but we're here. So Jordan, who's definitely the AI expert, has given us a description of AI. Let's just see what Chat GPT says. So I'm just typing now, let's just say explain AI to a kindergarten student in 50 words or less, because we don't have time to do this for too long. And it's thinking, and it writes right away, AI is like a robot brain that can think and learn like a person. It can do things like play games, answer questions, and help people. Pretty darn good. I guess.
Maybe take off the limitation of the kindergarten students, see if it does a better job.
Okay. Oh yeah, well, for sure. Explain, oops, I can't type here. Explain AI in 50 words or less. And so I'm continuing this chat for the listener. This is not a new thing. We're just continuing down. AI is technology that can mimic human intelligence and perform tasks such as decision-making, problem-solving, and learning. It can be used in areas like self-driving cars, voice assistants, and medical diagnosis. So that's a little bit more sophisticated and better. But to Jordan's comment about the Seinfeld script, and hopefully listeners know I love Seinfeld, but we won't do that. How about explain AI in 50 words or less in the way Donald Trump would explain it? Let's see what happens now. I don't know if I should do an impression, but this is typing as we go. AI is a big deal, folks. It's like a computer brain that can think and learn just like us. We're using it to make America great again with smart cars and technology that will make life easier for everybody. Believe me. I'm not a Donald Trump impressionist rather. But anyway, so this you can see, and I guess the question is, I guess I could have typed into Google what is AI, and I would get some description. But I think that these the next steps down and down, Google's not going to be creating an AI explanation like Donald Trump or like some other whatever the heck you want to do. So what does this mean actually for if ChatGPT can answer all my questions and answer them, frankly, how I want them to be answered? What does this mean for Google? In Microsoft, Bing, although I think they may be doing something with OpenAI, but Google is, dominates. So any thoughts? I'm going to shut this now, but shut my screen share. Any thoughts, Jordan, what this means for Google and who should be afraid here? Forget about the good stuff AI is going to do. Who should be shaking in their boots?
Any company that has not already got an AI strategy, it should be on top of it yesterday. This is one of those things that if you wait, you will get wiped, I think, as a business.
Right.
A new company will come and become the incumbent and displace you, or one of your competitors will adopt it faster. So this is not one of those technologies that I think, if you wait, if you've played wait and see till now, you should stop and you should really get on it. So that's one thing. The big incumbents, I think there is a risk. So we're invested in a company called U.com, started by a guy named Richard Socher, who's one of the most well-known NLP language researchers out of Stanford.
Natural language processing is a field of artificial intelligence that deals with the interaction between computers and human languages.
Built a company, sold it to Salesforce, ran AI at Salesforce, built their AI products there. He started this company to basically be a new search engine, to do things a little bit differently. And they were the first to incorporate chat in their search results. They did it December 23rd, so a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
They immediately saw their traffic go vertical, and a lot of freaking out from the big companies.
Yeah.
To the point where over the Christmas holidays, ended up on the phone with the CEO of some of the big companies.
Yeah.
Like during the Christmas holidays. So you can tell their concern about the competitors here.
Yeah.
That's an example of how seriously this could disrupt some of the biggest businesses in the world, including Google's, which is, I think, the greatest single business model in history. Their search product generates 150 billion plus a year in revenue.
Yeah.
They've built internally what is equivalent to OpenAI called Lambda. They had an employee last summer claim it was so good that the employee said it was sentient, and that person is no longer at the company, but they haven't released it because Google's concern is if we release it and it gives incorrect results, which these things tend to sometimes do,
right,
that really impugns the veracity of the search results and people's ability to rely on Google. Not to mention their business model is the links that result when you do search. So they have to rethink the links because it's not easy to put links into a chat result as easily.
Yeah.
So there are some big issues on the horizon here. Google, I think, is going to imminently respond with their own product, like within weeks. But and maybe by the time people are listening to this, it'll have happened.
Yeah.
So I think the world is going to change pretty dramatically. The average person may not notice it day to day, but businesses should be aware of it right now.
Well, and my understanding is that Microsoft has made an investment and may be making a larger partnership with OpenAI. I don't know anything confidential, just sort of what I'm hearing. But I can imagine, we use Microsoft Office Suite. I can imagine I'm in Word and I just say, hey, Bing, prepare me a proposal for a new client based on the normal questions that we would ask. I don't know. And actually, I should have said this up front. So I always prepare a nice agenda. I hope it's a nice agenda for these podcasts. I actually didn't prepare the agenda for the first portion of this podcast. ChatGPT prepared the agenda for the first portion of this podcast. So I said to ChatGPT, give me 10 questions to ask an AI expert on what is AI and so on and so forth. And I got 10 questions. And I will say that 3 of them I deleted, didn't need them. 3 of them I tweaked, and 4 of them, I guess, I kept exactly the same. So it saved me. I used my brain. I used the real intelligence, but I used it after I had the AI give me a full sort of, head start, basically. So imagine that inside Microsoft that, most of the world's businesses use, or many of the world's businesses, I should say. Unbelievable. Okay, we better keep.
I was going to say that the immediate challenge is going to be for teachers. So
right.
Already many schools have started to ban the use of ChatGPT for essay writing because it can write essays beautifully and better than many students can.
Yep.
And teachers can't tell the difference other than the fact that suddenly students are writing much better essays than they did before. So there's been a fairly widespread ban in elementary and middle and high school, and then even in universities in using this stuff. It's going to be a cat and mouse game. I think that
very hard,
probably you're going to have universities, at least who can afford it, buy software that is AI that identifies when things have been written by AI. And so
unreal.
So that is happening in real time, like literally within the last couple of weeks because of ChatGPT. The other answer to the question about where this goes. So we're investors in a company called Cohere, based in Toronto, founded by one of the inventors of Transformers. He was a 19-year-old kid at Google Brain when he was a co-inventor. They're a competitor to OpenAI. Their approach is to build this technology and enable every business in the world to get access to it, none of whom can afford to build it themselves or hire people.
Right.
So OpenAI is tied up with Microsoft. Microsoft is apparently making a $10 billion investment. Essentially, it is becoming a subsidiary of Microsoft. It will get infused in all the products in Microsoft. They've already said that it will be in everything, which goes to the point I made about AI will eat all software. So it will be infused in Word and Excel and everywhere else. And you'll see that other companies do the same. Google will do it in all of its products. It's already done in a lot of them, but lots of other companies too. And then for all of those organizations in the world that can't build their own AI divisions or spend 10 billion investing in AI, they'll be buyers from our company, Cohere, which is going really well and is really one of the primary competitors to OpenAI.
Amazing. So speaking of your portfolio companies, maybe we'll just shift over to Radical and what you're doing there. You've given us a little bit of the story about how you got there, but for our listeners, what is Radical? It started a few years ago. I know what types of things or companies, I should say, are you invested in? Successes, what do you see in the future? Anyways, just a little bit of overview of Radical for our listeners. And by the way, I know I think I know you're raising a new fund now, and I don't know if that's all institutional or private investors as well, but maybe give us a little bit of the story about Radical and what you're doing there.
Sure. We started Radical originally to consolidate the angel investing Tommy and I had been doing since we met, really, in like more than a decade ago, in AI companies. So we were just writing little personal checks into AI companies, which had gone well. I'm not sure if you asked my wife while I was doing a startup and not earning a salary, if it was smart to continue to write checks and buy a new car for a decade. But anyway, she supported it and we did, and it's gone well.
Yeah.
In 2017, we decided while we were running Layer 6, and we'd spun it out, and we'd also started the Vector Institute.
The Vector Institute is an independent research organization based in Toronto, Canada, focused on advancing the field of AI by training the next generation of AI leaders and fostering cutting-edge research.
Which has now grown to like 3,000 researchers. We had a lot on our plate, and we just decided it was too challenging to write checks individually every time. And we always had people come to us and say, hey, can you get me in your deal? So we decided to just create a little dedicated pool of capital that we could do that like at our decision without having to go wrangle the checks from everybody.
Yep.
As you know, wealthy people are not the best at filling out their forms. And so
we handle that for them if they like. To be clear, we're not investors in, and we have no affiliation with Radical, but in general, we handle all that paperwork for clients.
That's good. It would have made that life easier back then. So anyway, we created this little fund, a $7 million fund, $7 million US fund to write pre-seed and seed checks, like $250,000 checks. And then when we decided to actually sell the company and like go full into Radical, that was 5 years ago this week.
Oh, congrats.
And we decided to keep it Canadian. The offers we had were from outside of Canada, but we wanted to keep it Canadian after having created the pan-Canadian strategy and Vector. Went to a couple of the banks. TD ended up buying us. And we told them we're going to do this fund. And they were very good. They said, stay until you get the company integrated. And then we'll let you know and we'll let you go. So they called me 6 months later and said, you've already generated a tremendous amount of value. We want to go raise your fund. We want to be an LP.
Nice.
But in the meantime, stick around. And if it doesn't work out, stay, which was fantastic of them. They were, they made us very senior, like one layer between us and the CEO. And it was very generous for them to let me to do that while I remained on staff and, showing up to a few meetings a week. Went out and raised the fund, left in May of 2019. And, when we started, we had commitments from CPPIB, Canada Pension Plan, PSP, Temasek, the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund. All of them were considered like A+ global institutional investors, which was nice. PSP and CPP had not done venture before. So we were the first venture investment. They've since done all kinds of great funds in the US. I think they've done other Canadian funds. Maybe CPP has done one now. Temasek had not invested in Canada in venture before. Institutional investors like TD, big family offices like Whittington and the Weston family, also in the US, Eric Schmidt, who'd run Google, which is the Newhouse family that owns Condé Nast and Reddit, big shareholder in Warner Discovery. So a bunch of great investors. And then like down to kind of smaller family offices, people that had invested in our company and done well with us and wanted to come back in. And obviously our own money too. So we started May of 2019. We ended up closing that fund at $325 million. The focus is exclusively AI. We tend to invest early, so it's Series A is the sweet spot. We will go as early as doing a couple of incubations. Cohere is an example of a company that we got involved with even before they incorporated, when the guys were still at Google Brain.
Right.
And work with them on the business model and what they're doing, and then put the money. We were the only check when the day they incorporated. And so our team has now grown. We've done 27 investments in that first institutional fund, finished investing out of that fund in new companies. We will have still follow-ons in the existing companies. The performance has been fantastic. We now have a new institutional fund, which is our third fund, although it's actually our fourth fund because we have an opportunity fund as well, because our companies have done so well. We need to follow on investments. We needed more capital.
Yeah.
So in total, in our new fund, we're targeting a $550 million fund. We've closed most of it.
Wow.
All the key LPs have come back, plus a bunch of additional people. Jeff Hinton's part of the investment group in the fund. Fei Li, as I say, runs AI at Stanford. Some other top luminaries in the world as well invested. So we're on the road to closing out that fund, and we started investing out of it in the second half of 2022. The investment geography in our first institutional fund was just North America, about half Canada, or a little more than half Canada, the balance in the US, mostly Bay Area.
Yep.
The new fund will continue to be focused in North America, but we've already done a deal in London and one in Israel. the other news is that we will soon open an office in London, people there. So, a lot of stuff going on. We've grown.
Interestingly, and sorry to interrupt you, you said Toronto, first of all, is the home, and you explained earlier in the podcast how unbelievable the talent is here, and you just said London's your next office.
Yeah, Palo Alto. We did open Palo Alto.
I was going to ask you about that too. Okay, yeah. So you're in the sort of Silicon Valley area as well.
Yeah, we brought on a partner there about a year and a half ago, and started to build up that office. Work out of there regularly and have team members in California. So yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. So Toronto, Palo Alto second. One of our leaders is in New York, and then we'll add London.
Amazing. That's a huge success. Congratulations. Maybe you talked a little bit about some of your portfolio companies. One that is exciting for me. So I drive a Tesla. A few years ago, I paid for the full self-driving. It cost, it was an additional 10,000 at the time. Now it's 19,000 if you want to turn on full self-driving. So as it gets smarter and smarter, speaking of AI, Elon Musk keeps making it more and more expensive. But it is that, speaking of you said one of your investors early on, the sort of one of those moments that everything has changed with Tesla. Just a quick story. So you buy the self-driving for $10,000 at the time, and you don't get it right away. You have first of all, it wasn't ready, and you had to wait, and then you got to go on the you have to apply to be on the beta program, and then they start monitoring your driving for weeks. And so every second you're driving the car, they're giving you a score. And if you follow too closely, turn too quickly, hit the brakes too fast, your score goes down, which actually, by the way, is unbelievable. If you think about from a safe driving and insurance perspective, anyone who wanted that self-driving was driving like, I don't want to say it, but like a little old person or whatever, like Kramer when he was worried he was going to get hit and be in a coma in Seinfeld. But anyways, and then I got it. And then, and the way it works is it just downloads over Wi-Fi, which is pretty amazing for those who don't know. And the full self-driving came on, and it was at night, cause that's where my car's parked at home and it's attached to Wi-Fi. And I got in the car and I turned it on in my neighborhood, and I realized like the world has changed from this point forward. Is it perfect? No, by any stretch, but the feeling that I had and seeing what I saw, it was like I stepped into the next dimension, and I called my brother-in-law who lives a few kilometers away. And I said, I'm coming to your house right now. You have to see this. And we took a drive around. And anyways, it was unbelievable. And it actually gets smarter and smarter every few weeks as these updates go. You have a self-driving startup in your portfolio, Wabi, I think it's called, if I'm pronouncing it right, run by Raquel Erdizan, formerly head of self-driving at Uber. Maybe just share from your perspective what self-driving looks like. What does that mean for the world? I don't know if there's a difference between what she's doing versus how Tesla is doing this, but I'm a real car enthusiast and a technology enthusiast. So put these two things together. I like those almost as much as tennis and music, which we're going to talk about before you have to jump. But what's happening at Wabi, one of your portfolio companies?
So yeah, Raquel is a professor at University of Toronto. She like one of the world leaders in computer vision, but also in applying modern AI deep learning to self-driving. So unlike a lot of the self-driving companies who are kind of hard coding things, they were using a deep learning system. What they've done at Wabi is they've invented a simulator for the training of the car. So the car, is digital and is sitting in a created simulated digital world that constantly throws new things at the car for the car to experience and learn from and improve. And so the reason for that is for a machine to learn how to drive in a real environment requires so many tens of millions of miles to see everything that could possibly happen. There's so many edge cases that are unusual. A bag blowing across the road and obscuring your vision, or just things that are very, a lightning strikes and a pole falls in front of you. Those things are important to know how to deal with if they happen, because they're life or death in a driving scenario. So they can massively accelerate the learning at a virtually no cost by doing it through this AI simulator. they still need to go out on the road. And I think they will very soon announce a partnership with a trucking company. They're focused on trucking.
Right.
Trucking is an obvious use case. There's a very significant lack of truckers in North America, and a lot of the cohort of truckers will retire and age out, and there's not a replacements.
Yeah.
So you're going to need machines to be able to do that. The idea is highway driving is much simpler than city driving.
Yeah.
Where people on the road, pedestrians and scooters and bicycles and stop and starts, and all those things that complicate the act of driving. So you'll see a pretty significant deployment in trucking, I think, over the next decade globally. And I think that it doesn't mean that truckers are going to lose their jobs. I think it's the exact same as plane pilots and subway conductors and train conductors, boat pilots. Many of these things that we are used to traveling in are run by AI.
Right.
A plane is not flown by the pilot for most of the flight.
Right.
And I don't know if when people get in the plane, if they think about that or not, but for a long, long time, there's an autopilot system that is flying most of the time.
Yeah.
Just like that, I think the governments will regulate that you need to have a driver in the cab of the truck. And it is there alongside the AI system. But I think ultimately what we'll see is that most of trucking on highways for sure is self-driving. And eventually in cities too, it'll just be the predominant method of transportation will be self-driving. If you go to San Francisco now, you can hail the equivalent of an Uber through Cruise, which is GM's self-driving unit. They have 100 cars on the road with no drivers, like 100 self-driving cars that are just driving around. So
Wow.
you can hail a Cruise, get in, and it'll take you to your destination, and there's no people in it.
Well, as I say, so I've got this on my car. I've not yet experienced in the city driving where I haven't had to take over, if any, in sort of, as you say, these weird things that happen, and especially in Toronto, lots of construction, lots of potholes, lots of this and that. So to hear that actually happening with full self-driving, that's amazing. Okay, so you run essentially an institutional focused venture capital firm. The average person, unfortunately, is likely not going to be able to become a limited partner at Radical. What's the best way for the typical investor out there to get exposure to, like, direct exposure, I guess? Because if you say this is going to be involved in everything and revolutionize everything, ultimately every company will have some AI component to it. But today, if someone wants to sort of ride this wave of excitement and technological innovation, how do investors get access to this?
You can buy shares in the public companies that are really AI companies. So the big tech companies are AI driven companies. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, like those are AI companies that it's all over the place. I mean, Amazon uses it in all their logistics, in all their website. Like it's just everywhere. So if you want exposure to companies that are on the leading edge of deploying it, those are examples that an average retail investor can make the investment through the public markets. I think in the private markets, obviously there's credit investor limitations, but
Right.
it might be in future ways for people to pool capital and get into some of these things. Ultimately, over the next 5-10 years, everything's going to be an AI company. Every bank, every insurance company, every medical company, every farming entity, everything. So I think, if people are interested, they should keep an eye on, they should read, they should do some homework, see which companies are adopting this for real versus just talking about it. And you'll see, I think, the companies that are on the early curve of adoption pulling far ahead of others. They don't have to be developing this up themselves if they're just licensing the technology from startups that we invest in. That is a very good way to get adoption without having to spend all the R&D expense.
Right. You got it. All right. Well, look, that's an amazing overview of your story, what AI is, what Radical's doing, how AI is going to revolutionize the world. Before we end, if you can indulge me and us, because as you know me well, music and tennis, my two favorite things. If we could combine them somehow, that would be amazing. And you've had a ton of involvement in both of these areas. can you, if you're okay with it, can you tell us maybe your favorite story or an interesting story from your work with Elvis Costello and Elton John on Spectacle?
Yeah, sure. I can give you a couple stories. One is just an example of Elton's work ethic.
Yeah.
So when we had the concept for the show, so just to describe it to people, the idea is having had a background where when I was a lawyer, I was representing tech entrepreneurs, but also musical artists and athletes. I just loved music and entertainment and tech and sports. So I was able to do all three and I was lucky.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of that was you'd be backstage with artists and you'd hear the kind of stories behind the scenes, how they wrote this song, talking, gossiping about other artists, like all the fun stuff
Yeah.
that you wouldn't hear when they would show up on the late night talk show and play a song and promote their new record for 3 minutes on the couch.
Right.
The idea was, could you have an artist interview them where they would be at ease and they would talk about the things they love and their motivations and how they wrote these songs. So that was the idea for the show. The artist that was hosting it was Elvis Costello. Elton was an executive producer with me and a few others. And we would get great guests like Bono and the Edge from U2 and the Police and Lou Reed, Herbie Hancock, Nora Jones. I'm forgetting all kinds of great, Bruce Springsteen, who would basically sit and talk and perform. They would demonstrate, like Sting explained how he wrote Roxanne
Right.
and how it transformed as he was writing it. And then they would also perform like full out performances too. So when we were pitching the show, the same with trying to raise a fund or raise money for your company, most people think you're nuts if you're trying something big. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
no. And we were going around and we were pitching and we were in discussions with the channel that ended up running it in the US, Sundance Channel. We're going to have a big meeting in New York. And Elton's husband, David Furnish, said, why don't we do it at our hotel? And we'll meet on, I think it was like a 9 a.m. on a Monday morning. And so a couple of us from Toronto who are partners in this and David down. And what David didn't tell the broadcaster is what I found out when I walked in the room, and he didn't even promise us. He said to us, like, just show up a bit, like half an hour early.
Yeah.
I get there like 8:30 in the morning and Elton's in the room.
Right.
That was a Monday morning. Elton had started the day. This is what I recall, and it's a while ago. Elton started the day on Sunday in London, flew to Eastern Europe to do a performance, then flew overnight to New York, landed at like 4:00 in the morning, went straight to the hotel, maybe got a bit of sleep, showered, whatever, was dressed perfectly to the nines when this crew walked in from like 8 or 9 people from the broadcaster, and they walk in and Elton John's in the room, and he was like amazing. He knew the story perfectly. He dazzled them as superstars can do.
Yeah.
Like there are these people in the world who just have extraordinary level of charisma, but
Yeah.
also are brilliant and, can carry conversation, can make you feel very comfortable in it. So just his willingness to put in that effort to do that was an example, I think, of why people who achieve something extraordinary and reach really the apex of their field and it's something incredibly competitive,
Yeah.
how you stay there is that you're willing to do as much work or more even than you did on the way up.
Right.
Not take things for granted, not expect it just to come to you. There was a very good example, I think, of that, of someone who, has been at the top of their game for 40 plus years, almost 50 years at this point, which is unbelievable. Like if you think about the history of music, how many artists achieve incredible success and then disappear after 2 or 3 or 4 years or 10 years or 20 years?
Yeah.
Stay there at that level for that long is like an example of his dedication and work ethic in addition to his musical genius.
Yeah.
That was a really nice example for me. We had lots of funny things happen along the way in making the show. One of the most amazing things was we were booked to have U2 perform, be on the show, Bono on the Edge, in our second season as our first episode. And we were shooting the show in New York, and we bookended this. We had to shoot them like together, one after another, through the course of a week or week and a half, 2 weeks, in order to make the budgeting work.
Yeah.
And we were shooting season 2 at the Apollo Theater in New York. And about 2 weeks before we started, so we were going to shoot YouTube, like the Bono and Edge episode is the first episode of the season, and Springsteen is the last episode. And about 2 weeks before, I got a call from U2's management saying, we can't do it. We're on this 360 tour. It's the biggest tour in the history of the world.
Yeah. I was there. Remember
we're
that.
We're squeezing you in between shows. Bono's voice needs a rest. We can't do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's bad. I'm going to, just so you know, I said to the manager, we're partnered with his charity.
Right.
Last year, Elton did a song for his charity, for Bono's charity with the Killers.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you're going to have to let Elton know that even though he did that, now these guys are backing out. And so he's probably going to hear from Elton. Bono's probably going to hear from Elton.
Right.
But she said to me, okay, don't do anything. I'll call you back. I think,
you know what you're doing, eh? I love it.
Called me back in about 10 minutes and said, okay, we can do Toronto in 9 days. I think it was like, this was a Thursday, or maybe it was 10 days, 11 days. Anyway, it was very short. And she didn't know I was in Toronto. She knew the show was being shot in New York. And so I said, yes. I said, okay, yes. And she's like, what? I thought she expected me to say, no, that's impossible.
Right.
But I said, yes. And then we got off the phone. I called the head of CTV, who was our partner in Canada, and said to her, great news. That Bono Edge episode we're going to shoot in New York? She said, yeah. I said, we're going to shoot in Toronto instead. She said, oh, amazing. Where? I said, in your studio, the Masonic Temple.
Yeah.
Was based.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, when? I said, a week Monday. And she stopped and she said, we shoot in there on Mondays. I said, yeah, but you won't shoot there that day. You'll take the stuff out. We'll move in on Sunday. We'll shoot on Monday. It'll be gone. You can shoot again on Tuesday. And then she paused for a while and she said, how many tickets can I have? And I said, well, how many does it hold? And she's like 120. And I said, well, how many do you want? She's like, I'm making up the numbers now, but she's like 90. And I said 30. And then she's like 80. And I'm like 40. And we had a haggle over it. At the end of the day, she got as many as she needed, but we were able to do this, move the episode. And because we were shooting in Toronto and I'd been running, and we had been shooting the show in New York before, and I'd been doing that in parallel to running the law firm and doing other stuff. I really had not seen my friends much in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And they I think they believed it was maybe true that I'd been making the show.
Right. Maybe you really know Elton John. Right. Maybe.
So, I mean, it had been on the air at that point, so they knew, but so we ended up doing the taping in Toronto, and we historically would invite in the fan club of that band to populate the seats, like just give them the seats for free.
Yeah.
And I said to like our day-to-day producers and director, I'm like, look, I can fill this with my friends. And I mean, let's go get the fan club, but I can also fill it up. So we basically, I invited like a lot of my friends. And so when we were taping the show, I was standing with the director and he's like, who's that? I'm like, that's my brother. Who's that? That's, my friend from grade school. Who's that? And so when they produced the output of the show at the end, they labeled them like it's, season 2, episode 1 is episode 201. And, it's spectacle with Bono in the end. So in this case, they gave me a dub of it, like a copy of it on CD, and it was labeled episode 201, Jordan's Bar Mitzvah Show with Bono and the X.
Amazing.
So, it was, for me, it was fun to be able to do that in Toronto. When we conceived the show, we lived on an apartment on that same block. So I used to walk past that place. U2 is one of my favorite groups of all time. So I used to walk past there imagining we would do this show there. When we were doing the show, we were doing it all in New York at Saturday Night Live studio, then the Apollo. So if there was no idea we were going to ever do it there, and just a quirk of fate ended up having it there. So, and it was a lot of fun. So, I was able to take, at the time, our 2-year-old over there while the opening chords are being played of Where the Streets of No Name, 5 5 of us in the crew in the rehearsal and stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Amazing experience. And, you talk about being at the top of your game, of the people that you're working with, top of the game, and working so hard and having a big vision. And that's how you make things happen. Frankly, that's my view of you. I mean, you've created all these different things. One of the greatest AI companies sold to TD. I think at the time, the largest a venture firm focused on AI with your first capital raise. Sorry, in North America at the very least. You're a big thinker, and you're at the top of the game. It seems like so. It's absolutely amazing. Good lessons to share with our listeners too. Any interesting or great things on the tennis side? I know you're a big Federer fan. You're director of Tennis Canada. Excuse me. Wait, director of. I'm still doing the bar mitzvah thing with my voice cracking there. Director of Tennis Canada. Any, and I know you've been very generous with your time. So quickly, any interesting tennis stories? My favorite things to do.
Yeah, as you know, I love tennis, so I've been very privileged to be on the Tennis Canada board. Recently, an amazing thing was Canada winning the Davis Cup, which is like the World Cup of tennis.
Yeah.
So an amazing thing to witness, kind of a little bit from the inside. I wasn't actually there, but have heard from many others who were that it was just an incredible experience. I've been lucky. I mean, I've been able to, as a fan, I've met Federer. Excuse me. I've been able to go, after we sold the company, a bucket list was to go to Wimbledon.
Yeah.
We got to do that, been to the French Open final. I mean, these are all things before Tennis Canada, but Tennis Canada has really been an amazing experience because the organization is unique in that it is responsible for the grassroots development of players, like from little kids up to pro. It's also responsible for coaching certification, things like that. But then it also has the tournaments, and it's a co-owner of the tours, right? The men's and women's tour. So it's very plugged in at a global level, and then all the way down to grassroots development level to try and generate the next generation of superstar players.
Yeah.
And so it's mostly self-funding through the tournaments and the revenues it derives in the revenues that it gets from the tours as a co-owner. So it's a really fascinating organization in this, because it's very different from most other national sports organizations because of the ability to fund. And it's got all these different moving parts. So it's really complicated. A lot of interesting business things at a global level. One of the things that's happening now is this new Netflix series from the producers of Drive to Survive,
which is coming out on the day we're recording this, January 13th, I guess, this evening. I can't wait.
Yeah, it is. I've heard that it's really good. I'm looking forward. There's a prohibition in our house that we're going to watch it together, so no one jumps the line and watches.
Oh yeah, you got a lot of tennis players in the house and tennis fans. So
yeah, I think meeting Federer was an amazing experience. It happened in 2012. I have 2 brothers, both of whom are getting married that year. You can tell what kind of family are because the stag event for my youngest brother was taking him to New York and going to an exhibition match of Federer versus Roddick.
Right.
That was.
I remember you telling me about that.
We flew down there, and a cousin of mine worked at Madison Square Garden, and the afternoon before that match, I got a phone call that said, "Be at this gate at Madison Square Garden at 5:00." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Don't ask questions. Just be there."
Yeah.
I called my brothers, and I was with my partner, Don, who I'd mentioned earlier. And Don was going to come with us, also a huge tennis fan. As I said, we were bonded over being Federer fans.
Yeah.
And so the stag was me and my 2 brothers and Don, but at this tennis match, but Don was going to go home or something. And I said, "Don't go home, come with us." So we get there, and it's the players' entrance to Madison Square Garden. And they take in there like, "Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Jacobs, Mr. McKinnon, let's go."
Yeah.
And they take us up in the elevator, and you go up and you exit on ice level, like floor level for Madison Square Garden is above ground. It's about 5 or 6 stories up, I think. And we walk out from the players' elevator entrance, and you kind of come out the corner into the playing area, and the court is set up. And I look around, and you can see there's security people, there's TV people setting up cameras and lighting and stuff. And then there's Federer and Roddick on court. hitting with each other.
Yeah.
And on the near side, when we come in, is Roddick, and the far side is Federer. And they walk us along the side of the court, and they've set up 4 chairs on the edge of the doubles alley on Federer's side by the baseline.
Oh
Like,
my God.
and they said, these are your seats, watch the practice. And
Right.
we sit down, we watch the practice, which was, I mean, we're literally like 5, 8, 10 feet away from him as he's hitting. Like, if he runs too far, he's going to run into us
Yeah.
on his forehand. So
Oh my God.
watching just his footwork and his hands was, as a Federer fan, but a tennis fan generally, just unbelievable. I'd been live tennis lots,
Yeah.
but being that close and just seeing how fast his hands were and how fast his feet were was amazing. And then when it ends, we were like, that was the greatest thing ever. He walks out of the tunnel, and then he spins around, and he comes back, and he comes right straight up to us, and he sticks out his hand. He goes, "Hi, I'm Roger." And
Did you say who?
yeah, like, yeah, we know who you are. And we had a really nice conversation with him, where, unlike almost I've had the privilege of meeting lots of celebrities. Their handlers are always like time bound, they pull them away. He wasn't. There was no one pulling him away. He was just having a totally normal conversation. He says, "Why are you guys here?" Because he knew we were from Toronto. He said these guys were getting married. And he's like, "Oh," and then he went to the whole story about, "Oh, I met my wife. Her name is Mirka. I met her," and like, we know your wife is Mirka.
Yeah.
I met her in Australia, or, tells the whole story at the Olympics, and kind of, and marriage is the greatest thing ever. And, changed my whole trajectory. And we just had a really lovely conversation with someone who was as genuine and authentic and pleasant, and no rush to disappear,
Yeah.
as any celebrity I would say, as much or more as any celebrity I've ever met in my life. It made me love the guy even more. And
Amazing.
so that was a really fun kind of tennis experience. But
Love it.
I've been lucky. There have been a lot of them.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, you've made them happen. Okay, last question, and then we get to let you go and watch the tennis
I'm
new
not
show on
allowed.
Netflix tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, tonight. Um, our theme at Ginsler Wealth is unlimited. Our view is we can look at any investment opportunity. We can help families with whatever they need on the financial side. And we love that word unlimited. We ask every guest, and now you've done a lot of different things, so I don't know what your answer is going to be, but if, like anyone on earth, really, you have unlimited options. You can do anything you want. If you weren't doing what you're doing right now, what would you be doing? Maybe you'd be doing the same thing, but what would you be doing? Unlimited, you can do anything in the world.
I would be doing this. I mean, I wasn't doing this, and I made this so I could do this. I mean,
Right.
for me, it kind of satisfies so many of the things I love. I love technology and thinking about the future and how you can make the world better. I'm curious by nature, so I love AI because it touches so many different areas. We get to invest in healthcare, and we're not industry specific.
Yeah.
I get to learn. I get to invest in, like, the smartest people in the world and learn from them. Our team is incredible, so learning from our team. And I'm incentivized that if we do it properly, I also get to make money from it, which, like, I would
Right.
always do it without. I mean, I don't want to say this, but would
I'll
almost do it
tell
without.
your partners.
Yeah, don't mention that to our LPs. But so it really is like a pretty unicorn type gig. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, building a fund from zero is a ton of work. I imagine it's much easier to go into a fund that's got a reputation, and it's easier to raise money and hire people and get into deals. But so our goal has been to build a reputation really fast. I think we have built an elite reputation now in the AI world, and among AI founders, and starting to be in the wider tech world. But I really like it. I mean, I can't imagine another job giving me, like, satiating my curiosity, getting to work with people this smart in so many different disciplines, learning about so many things, and getting paid to do it. So
Amazing. Sounds awesome. So look, thank you so much, Jordan, for your time, for sharing with us the world of AI, how it looks today and how it's going to look in the future. You gave us a little bit of a vision into the future and your story. Wish you've had huge success. I wish you continued success, and appreciate the time we spend together, and enjoy the tennis show tonight, and look forward to talking to you again. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and hope everyone has a happy, healthy, prosperous year ahead.
Thanks, Jordan. All the best.
This has been Ryan's conversation with Jordan Jacobs of Radical Ventures. This podcast is not to be taken as investment advice and is not an endorsement of Radical Ventures. This has been a Ginsler Wealth audio production. The Unlimited podcast is hosted and produced by Brian Ginsler and is edited and mixed by myself, David McMillan. Don't forget to rate the podcast and follow us on social media at Ginsler Wealth. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.